Hello, and welcome back to the Calm and Connected podcast. I'm your host, Janine Halloran, and today's episode is all about coping strategies that can be useful for kids at an elementary school level. So some of you may know that I was a school counselor for several years, and as part of being a school counselor, I worked in different settings. So one setting that I worked in was a 4th and 5th grade elementary school. Really had a fun time there, have very fond memories of helping kids learn how to deal with their big feelings in that setting. And so I wanted to share some of the strategies that I think would be most useful for kids in that kind of setting. Some of them are things that can be done in a separate setting with a counselor, a school therapist, a mental health professional, or an aide if they are being taken out and needing a little bit of extra support. And some can be actually done within the classroom. I tried to pick ones that were not requiring a lot of extra stuff, not requiring a lot of big props or anything like that, but things that they could use their imagination to help them deal with their big feelings or whatever was going on for them. So the first strategy is a deep breathing strategy, and I love the visualization of this one. So it's smell the cocoa and cool the cocoa. So you have kids imagine that they're holding a cup of cocoa, just like this, and then you have them pretend to be smelling it and then cool it down. And I like this because it slows their breathing down. And instead of saying like, take a deep breath, which they don't always know what that means, but that way you can encourage them to take slow breaths using the strategy of just imagining a cup of cocoa or even a cup of tea. So they can really cool it down, smell it and cool it down. So I really love the imagery for that for them. I think they really, they kind of dig it. So I think that's kind of a fun strategy to use to help kids take those slower breaths. Next strategy I like to use with kids in an elementary school level, and actually for all kids and adults, is called Imagine Your Favorite Place. So this is one I've talked about before, but I wanted to highlight this because as a school counselor, I was working with 5th graders as they were transitioning up to the middle school. And this is a strategy that I worked on with them in whole class settings so that they would be able to use a strategy anywhere they were, and they would be able to help manage their big feelings. So it's really simple. It's sort of, you just think about a favorite place, think about a calm place, think about a place that makes you relax, and you can go there in your mind. And it's like taking a mini vacation wherever you are. And the bonus of it is that you can do it anywhere. Like your imagination goes with you wherever you are. So you can just do the strategy wherever it works for you. So I really like being able to encourage kids to use and imagine their favorite place and to really use their senses. So what do you smell? What do you hear? What do you taste? What do you feel? What do you see when you're there in your calm place, in your favorite place? And take a few minutes if you're starting to get escalated, if you're starting to get heightened, take a few minutes and go to that favorite spot and then get back into the things that you need to do for school. Another strategy I would use when kids would come into my office and they were a little bit escalated, things were maybe, a little bit unsettled. I'd like to use distraction strategies with them. Sometimes it was good to make them giggle, make them laugh before we started talking about the serious stuff that was going on. So I really love using Would You Rather. Again, it's just using your words and you don't need any extra stuff just to make up a Would You Rather question. Would you rather sew all of your own clothes or grow all of your own food? Would you rather be able to fly or be invisible? And just that silliness, that moment of just having a little bit of fun can be enough to sort of help kids snap out of that fight, flight, or freeze and try and get back down to rest and digest, giving their brains a break. Sometimes they come in and they're just really overwhelmed with a lot of stuff that's going on. And so to be able to help them chill out a little bit by doing something like asking a would you rather question and getting them to be a little bit silly with you. And then you can even ask them, do you have a would you rather question you want to ask? And you can answer the would you rather question. You can answer the ones you ask them too. But it can be kind of a fun way to segue into having deeper conversations about what's going on, what's making you upset, what's making you sad, what's making you mad. But sometimes they need a little bit of that break, that space to be able to calm down a little bit, to be able to have that conversation. Something else that I would often have my kids do is a movement strategy that I like to encourage them to do. Actually, more towards the end of our time when we're working together. So I would have a kid come into my office and they'd be escalated. Maybe we'd do something like do a would you rather question or two, and then we'd have a conversation. And then they were almost ready to go back to class, but they just needed a little bit more time. They just needed, a little bit of a moment, a break to be able to re-enter the classroom in a pretty good space. So what I would do is I would have them take a walk around the building. I'd say go walk to the bathroom, splash some water in your face, and then go on back to class, or go out of my office, go and get to the water fountain and take a sip of water, and then go back to class. So it was just that transition to help them get back to class, and help them get a little bit of water, get a little bit more hydrated, get a little bit of water on their face, just to get that movement of being able to move back and transition back into the classroom. Now, when I worked in a middle school, I will say when I encourage kids to do this, I will always make sure to give them a pass, because I didn't initially, and then they would get caught, and then all the work that I had just done to try and help them de-escalate sort of went out the window, and they'd be back in my office. So if you're working with us in a school where kids need passes, make sure to give them a pass so people know what they're doing. And this is, if you think that they are in a good place to be able to walk on their own. If they're not able to walk on their own, please don't let them go on their own. So use your discretion when you are encouraging them to do this strategy. Depends on the kid. So there are definitely kids I would send back and have them go ahead and take a walk by themselves. And there are other kids I would walk back to the classroom. So it all just depends. But so the kids, and you will know what will work and what won't. The next strategy that I liked to use was actually something that a mom showed me in that elementary school. So it's called a calming jar. It's something where you have glitter, like glitter glue and water, and inside of a jar. That's the simplest way you could do it. And you just move the jar around and shake the jar up so all the glitter is moving around, and you put the jar down, and you have kids watch the jar and have their mind settle to the ground, and as the glitter settles to the ground. So it's kind of a cool strategy because it gives them an opportunity just to chill out for a minute and watch the glitter settle down to the ground. It can take a minute or two for that to happen. So it's just a natural sort of reset time for kids. I've worked with clients of mine who actually have had their entire classrooms have calming jars. And one strategy that they would use as they came back from recess is everybody got out their calming jar and they would shake it up, and they would watch the glitter settle to the ground in the jar, to the bottom of the jar, as they were getting ready to transition in from outside back into the classroom. So I found that to be a really interesting and helpful thing to think about, that this is something that you could do whole class. This is something that you can do for an individual student. This is something that I did have in my office in that school. So that way, if a kid came in, they could use the glitter jar, they could set it down, and they could watch the glitter settle to the bottom of the jar, and then get a little bit calmer and more able to be in a space that they were able to talk. There's actually a YouTube video I created so you can see how to make one of these jars very simply. So I'll link to that in the show notes for you as well, so you can see what that actually looks like in action. Another thing that I would like to always do with kids is help them identify their feelings when they came into my office, because we know when kids are able to name an emotion, it is easier for them to self-regulate. So one thing I would do is I would use feeling thermometers, and I would have ones that were colored in, and I had 3 feelings that they could pick from. I had sad and happy and mad. And so they could come in and say, I am medium-sized mad, or I am a little sad, or I am very happy. So it was helpful to be able to kind of get an idea of where the kid was, just a different way of getting an idea of what was going on in terms of their feelings and how big or small the feelings were, and then being able to then move on to, okay, I'm noticing that the thermometer, you put that arrow up to the top and you said you were really, really big mad. I'm wondering what's going on for you. So it was just another way to get kids to really be able to tap into the practice of naming their emotion and making it easier to be able to self-regulate. And it's incredible to see when they can come in and say, I'm mad. And suddenly just being the voicing of just saying I'm mad sort of dissipates. And then we can have a conversation about what made you mad and let's figure out what to do. And then let's get you back into the classroom. And then the last strategy that I wanted to talk to you about was a strategy that I learned about from Katie Hurley, my good friend and colleague. So she has written several books, including this Stress Buster workbook for kids. And so this is a strategy that comes out of that. It's called Take 5 to Calm Down. And so you can use your hand to think about the 5 different steps that you do. So the first step is to take 5 slow breaths. The next step is to think about 4 people who care about you. The third step is to think about 3 things that you love. Then you take 2 more slow breaths and you think about 1 positive memory. And so this is another strategy that I wish I had known about or thought about when I was a school counselor, because it's absolutely something that I would have used. And I've actually encouraged some of my private clients to use this as well when they are having some big emotions, just to be able to take that moment to pause and take some breaths and think about positive things and think about the people in your life who care about you can really make a difference. So I hope that has inspired you to think about some different coping strategies that you can encourage your elementary school students and clients to use. If you like this podcast, please feel free to share it with your colleagues and friends and like it and review it wherever you listen. And as always, don't forget about yourself. Take a few minutes, have a little fun, and have an awesome day.